Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 29 team selection, the biggest double game week of the season, so it is a very important one, and I do think I'm going to be taking at least a -4 hit, potentially a -8, I suppose potentially even a -12. If you're enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Before we jump into looking at my team selection for Game Week 29, I just wanted to give a massive shout out to Surfshark as they have sponsored today's video. Surfshark is essentially a VPN service which allows you to stay completely safe online, but also access content from over 100 different countries across the world. For example, I know a load of my viewers aren't probably from the UK. Maybe you want to access some content from the UK. All you need to do is simply change your virtual location to the UK and you can immediately access all of the content that we can over here. Or potentially, let's say you want to access some of the content that's over in the US, such as Hulu. Again, all you need to do is change your virtual location to LA and all of a sudden you can access all of the content that they can over there. Not only are Surfshark sponsoring today's video, but they are offering you guys 83% off and a further 3 months for free as well if you sign up using the link in the description or pinned comment or just use the code FPL Raptor. That is 83% off and a further 3 months for free. Of course, it does really help to support the channel, but it is a brilliant product I've been using for over 6 months myself, and I do highly recommend. Without further ado, let's take a look at my 29 team selection. So very briefly before we look at my team for Game Week 29, I just wanted to discuss Game Week 34. Now, I know it's been quite a few days since this was announced, but I think it directly impacts the decisions that some of us will make for Game Week 29. So, of course, we've got double Game Week 29. We've then got blank Game Week 32. And then double Game Week 34 and double Game Week 37. And then outside of those, we're going to have one small double game week, probably in 35 or 36 for Newcastle and Brighton. So realistically, 29, 32, 34 are the three that we really need to think about over the coming weeks. And there are some teams that double in both 29 and 34 and potentially blank in Game Week 32. And for many of us, myself included, we're probably planning to play our free hit in Game Week 32. So we probably want to end up loading up on players that double in 29 and double in 34, and then we can just free hit them out if they blank in 32. So looking at the teams that have had a double announced in Game Week 34, starting with Brighton, this tells me, which I've said for a while now because we knew they would have a double in 34, Brighton triple up is absolutely worth holding on to. Double in 29, you can move them out for their blank in 32, they then double in 34, they'll double in either 35 or 36, and then they'll double once again in 37. So they've still got 4 more double game weeks this season, and the only blank week, a lot of us will free hit anyway. If you don't have your free hit, or you're planning on not playing it in 32, maybe a Brighton triple up isn't necessary, because again, that will be all 3 of the players on your bench would then be blanking for 32. So that's something to consider. But for me, all this tells me, despite it not being a perfect double, 2 home fixtures, it tells me that I'm going to definitely hold on to my Brighton triple up. Fulham, I don't think are worth considering particularly. They don't have any good options, in my opinion, and regardless, the fixtures aren't great. I do like that Liverpool double, actually. 2 home fixtures again. Tottenham haven't been great, although maybe they'll be better now that Conte's gone. And then Fulham at home is a pretty decent one. So I think 2 home fixtures. Liverpool have got a lot of players returning from injury now. I'm very, very much considering at least one Liverpool, probably attacker. And then maybe if I can afford it, one of Robertson and Trent. But definitely the likes of Salah, maybe Diaz, who is now back in training, Darwin, someone like that could definitely be entering my team. It is probably going to be Salah that I tried to get in. And like I said, it will probably be for someone like James Maddison, I would imagine, in that spot. Then we move on to what is arguably the best double of the game week, which is Manchester City's double against Fulham away and West Ham at home. Now, the issue with Man City is that they just don't have that many good options. We're all going to probably have Haaland, assuming that he's fit for Game Week 34. And then outside of that, who do we pick? I know there have been some injury doubts around Foden. Mahrez, when he starts, is an excellent option, but will he continue to start? Maybe Alvarez could get some more minutes. Do we go for a Grealish? Or do we maybe go for a defender? But the defenders just have such a low upside. In the absence of Cancelo, who was their most attacking defender, I don't really like any of the defenders because they're 6 points merchants at best and they don't play every game. And then we've spoken about in the past, Ederson just doesn't make enough saves to be worth the amount of money. So whilst I really do like that double for Man City, I don't know who I'll end up bringing in. So it'll probably be Haaland and then maybe another attacker. But because Man City don't double in 29, we don't need to think about that right now. Manchester United, the other team along with Brighton, that I'm looking at this and thinking, I want a Manchester United triple up. A really decent double in 29. A really nice double here against Villa and Brighton in Game Week 34. And of course, like I said, they blank in 32. So triple up on Brighton, triple up on Man United. You get 6 double game week players in 29. You can free hit all 6 of them out in Game Week 32 when both teams blank. And then you have all 6 of them for double game week 34. On top of that, both Brighton and Manchester United will double in game week 37 as well. So you're going to have 6 double game week players immediately for 29, 34 and 37 by having 3 Brighton and 3 Man United players. So for me, like I said, at the moment, I've got 3 Brighton assets already, so I'm set there. I've only got 1 Man United asset. So I'm looking at least 1 Manchester United asset more this week, potentially bringing in 2 more to complete that triple up. And then the other team is actually West Ham, I should say, who have a really nice double in game week 29, 2 home fixtures against Southampton and Newcastle, and also double in 34. It's not a great double, both away fixtures, one of the fixtures being against Manchester City, but still, you do get another double game week in 34, you get the decent in double in 29. So all of a sudden now, I am considering a few West Ham assets because actually their single game week fixtures aren't terrible outside of that too. So I know it's not always directly relevant to game week 29, these doubles in 34, but it is making me definitely look at the likes of Liverpool assets. It makes me definitely want to hang on to my triple Brighton. And also I am looking at and loading up on assets from Manchester United and West Ham too. So that's double game week 34. Let's take a look at my team for 29. So moving on to game week 29, and my team is in pretty good shape. The bench boost is active, and I have 1 free transfer and 7.6 million in the bank. Now, that looks like a lot of money, but as I've said for a while, I am leaving that there to hopefully bring Haaland back in for Tony in game week 30. Now, at the time of me recording this, which is on Thursday evening, I don't yet have any updates on Haaland. There have been videos and pictures going around from training today, which again is Thursday, that Haaland hasn't been pictured at all. I don't know if that is a ploy. I don't know if that's something to try and throw Liverpool off. I don't think it is. I don't think Man City need to do that at the moment. They are the better team and Liverpool are struggling, but maybe it is. Hopefully Pep will give us something in the press conference on Friday, which will be when you're probably watching this, but he's not been very well known for that. So I'm not holding out. The thing is, though, with that 7.6, if I don't use it to do Tony to Haaland in game week 30, I may well use it in 30 or 31, probably 31, to do Maddison to Salah. So regardless of which of the premiums I go for, I want to try and leave kind of like 4 or 5 million in the bank if I can to do that Tony to Haaland or Maddison to Salah move. So I don't want to spend all of that money. So realistically, I'm probably looking at having about 2 to 2.5 in the bank with using that money in 30 or 31 in the back of my mind. I will be taking a hit this week. It will either be a -4 or a -8. I have looked at a couple of -12s, but it's unlikely. So let's look at the team without any transfers having been made, and then we'll talk about my potential transfer plans. Some of them straightforward. Some of them maybe require a bit of a risk if I want to take it. Starting with the defence, I've got Kepa in goal. I don't think it's a great double for Chelsea defensively, but I do like the 2 home fixtures. I'll be very surprised if Liverpool don't score against Chelsea. So really we're looking at that fixture against Aston Villa and thinking if Kepa can come away with a 6, 7, 8 pointer and then maybe get a few saves against Liverpool. If Kepa comes away from this double with 10 points, I would be very, very happy with that. If he doesn't keep a clean sheet against Villa, I am probably worried about his chances of getting any points or any notable points in this double. But I'm perfectly happy having him. And at the moment, I don't own Chilwell. I'll discuss at the end if I plan on bringing in Chilwell, which I probably am not looking at doing now because Chelsea don't double in 34, they double in 37. And even that double is a pretty rough double. So I'm probably looking at only having Kepa. But it does, what I'm trying to say is it covers the Chelsea clean sheet for me, which is nice. And if Chilwell does go massive, I'll at least cover the clean sheets with Kepa there. I've then got the double up on the Newcastle defence. Botman is flagged, but he's been pictured in training and it was only illness. So I'm pretty sure Botman will be fit. But again, let's see what happens on the Friday press conferences. But Botman will not be being sold unless there is some kind of issue with him long term. But again, he's been pictured in training. I think it's only an illness. And then Trippier is an absolutely excellent option. He continues to be an excellent option. And I am really happy to have the Newcastle double up because, like I said, they do have one further double game week, which will likely be in 35 or 36 against Brighton. So I'm happy to have the double up on the Newcastle defence. It's an okay double this week. Again, we're probably not expecting a clean sheet against Manchester United, although it is at home. So maybe we're looking more towards that second fixture against West Ham for the clean sheet. But I think a lot of us will have Newcastle double defence. I don't think it's a huge issue. And then I do have Estepinian. I'm perfectly happy having him. A lot has been said about the fact that he played in Australia only a few days before the game is going to be going ahead against Brentford at home in game week 29. But I have seen quite a few players already. Again, I'm recording this on Thursday evening, so I don't have any information. But I've seen quite a few players that have already made it back to training after travelling from the likes of Argentina. So I see no reason why Estepinian would miss the Brentford at home game unless something went on into the international break that we don't know about. But again, let's wait for the press conferences. Potentially we get some information. I wouldn't be selling him regardless because I don't really like any defenders, particularly for this double. And even if he doesn't play against Brentford at home, he's got Bournemouth away in the second fixture. So those 3 defenders and Kepa aren't going to be sold. I do have obviously my other goalkeeper and other defenders on the bench who could potentially be sold, which we'll discuss at the end because that's relevant to the bench boost. But I'm happy with that starting defence. comments. Let's move on to the midfield. I'm actually delighted with my midfield so far. Of course, I do have Saka on the bench, as I'll discuss, like I said, at the end, because he's the one that could be making way. But the 4 double game week midfielders that I have, I'm really, really happy with. And if I were to wildcard to free hit to anything, really, regardless of what chip I was playing, these 4 midfielders would probably be in my team. I may have Solly March in there instead of Matoma, which we'll discuss in a second. And I would probably add Salah or Bruno Fernandes as the 5th. But these 4, I am really happy with. We'll start with Maddison. I think he's an excellent punt on a wild card and a free hit regardless. He's got 2 really nice fixtures here in this double against Palace and Aston Villa. And then he's also got a really nice fixture in Game Week 30 against Bournemouth. So if you're looking for a midfielder, maybe you can't stretch to the likes of Bruno Fernandes or Salah, or you want to keep some money in the bank for the likes of Haaland in Game Week 30, then I do really like Maddison. And I think arguably Maddison could outscore the likes of Bruno Fernandes and Salah. The only thing that he doesn't have in comparison to the likes of Salah and Fernandes is that he's not on penalties. We don't think he'll be on penalties in the absence of the likes of Tielemans and Vardy. It's probably going to be someone like Iheanacho instead. So that is it's not a slight issue, but that is one thing that would push me slightly more towards the likes of Bruno and Salah. But for quite a bit cheaper, I really do like Maddison, and I'm delighted I've got him. I have my Brighton double up. We'll start with Matoma. This has become a bit of a meme, and a lot of people approach me about this all the time in comments and on Twitter. I don't think Matoma is a bad option. He is, when you watch the games, arguably their best attacker. I still think he's the 3rd best Brighton midfielder. That isn't to say that I think he's the worst Brighton midfielder. It's just that I think McAllister and March are still really, really good. Over a pretty long period of time now, we're looking at sort of 5, 6, 7 games. McAllister and March are maintaining really good data, and they are hogging a lot of the big chances. Matoma's just not getting that many chances. His data continues to be average at best. Yes, he is exceptional. Yes, he will probably convert a slightly higher percentage of those chances than the likes of McAllister and March. But for me, it's why I haven't considered Matoma captaincy this week. Why would I captain Matoma when McAllister has much better data and he's on penalty? So if I was choosing fresh, I probably would still go McAllister and March. That's not to say Matoma's a bad option. It's just to say I prefer the other 2, which means that my 2 captaincy options this week does come down to McAllister and Rashford. At the moment, I'm on Rashford, but it is probably like 51-49. The thing that I love about Rashford is his data is really, really strong. So despite McAllister getting lots of big chances, despite McAllister moving to this number 10 role, Rashford's data since McAllister has moved to the 10 role, around sort of Game Week 22, Game Week 23, Rashford's non-penalty expected goals is still higher than McAllister. So Rashford, despite obviously playing a little bit wider, despite McAllister being in that more central role, Rashford is still a slightly greater goal threat. That is very close, and both are putting up excellent data, but that swings me slightly towards Rashford. The other thing that swings me slightly towards Rashford is I think he's a better finisher. So I think if they both get a similar amount of chances, I would back Rashford to outscore McAllister. And the spread of goals and the spread of assists and the spread of everything is slightly lower in that Manchester United attack. If Manchester United score 3 goals, I would be expecting a minimum of 2 attacking returns from Rashford. If Brighton score 3 goals, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see McAllister not involved. And it's a similar situation to what we have over at Arsenal. If Arsenal score 3 or 4 goals, sometimes Ødegaard, Martinez, Saka aren't involved at all. So those are the things that lean me towards Rashford. The things that lean me back towards McAllister is I prefer the double. So they both play Brentford at home, which is an equal fixture on paper. Then McAllister's got Bournemouth and Rashford's got Newcastle. So I prefer the fixtures for McAllister. I also love the fact that McAllister is on penalties. I think that is a massive advantage. And I think by what we could easily see 1 or 2 penalties in this double for Brighton. And also, I just have a bit of a feeling, and this is something that I can't really back up with stats, I just have a bit of a feeling that McAllister could do really well in this double. So it's really tight for me. I've given you pros for both, and I guess the cons for both is that the other one is a slightly better option if you're looking at certain things. Let me know down below who you're currently planning on captaining. I do think that Rashford will be the most popular captain. Of course, if Rashford is a doubt, which I don't expect him to be, he looks like he's been in training. But if Rashford is a doubt, that might lean me back towards McAllister. Of course, McAllister has been on international duty, but he played something like 45 and 49 minutes. So assuming we don't get any updates about McAllister not being available, and assuming Rashford is fit, I'm just leaning Rashford at the moment, but I do really like McAllister. I don't even mind Maddison and Matoma. I think all 4 midfielders could be good captaincy shots. Like I said, let me know down below who you are currently captaining. Let's now take a look at the 3 forwards and my current bench boost. So moving on to the forwards and then the bench right at the end, and then we'll discuss my potential transfer plans in the next section. I'm not overly happy with the 3 forwards, but I think they're fine. Watkins and Tony have Both have 2 away games. They're not the best fixtures on paper, especially for Tony, but Tony is actually better away from home. I think I haven't actually looked into Watkins' data, but they're so talismanic, these kind of players, that if Villa score 1 or 2 goals in each game, or even if they only score 2 or 3 goals across the entire double game week, you would expect Watkins and Tony to get at least 1 attacking return from that. And that's why it's different to the likes of Brighton and Arsenal assets, is because Watkins is the main source of goals for Villa, and because Tony is the main source of goals for Brentford, they don't need to score a lot of goals, these teams. They don't need to have the best fixtures for these two to deliver. And being on penalties as well, like I said with McAllister, is a massive advantage for Watkins and Tony. And in fact, all 3 of my forwards are on penalties. Tony is on 9 yellow cards, so if he gets booked against Brighton, he misses the Manchester United game, and he also misses the game in game week 30 as well. 10 yellow cards is a 2-game suspension. I'm looking at selling Tony in 30 anyway, so fingers crossed Tony gets booked against Manchester United. That would be perfectly timed. He gets both games in game week 29, and then we can move him on in game week 30, hopefully for Haaland if he is fit for them. And then the third forward is Harry Kane. If there were better forwards to pick from, I would be perfectly happy selling Kane this week. I know he's got decent fixtures, but there are no upcoming doubles for Spurs. I don't need him in 32. If I want him in 32, I can free hit him in, so I don't need him for the blank. There is no huge advantage to keeping Kane, other than the fact that he's very consistent. And like I said, there just aren't any other forwards that I particularly want. If Manchester United had a forward that was playing every game, for example, let's say Martial was fit, and he was playing number 9 for Manchester United every week, I would sell Kane in a heartbeat, because I prefer double game weeks. And I don't think that Kane is an essential option, especially at his price, especially if that allows you to get like Salah into your midfield. But the thing is, I just don't like any other forwards that much. Kane against Everton away is fine. He's got Bournemouth coming up too in either 31 or 30. I think it's in game week 31. He's got Bournemouth. So you don't need to sell Kane. I think he's fine on a bench boost or in your starting 11. And I haven't looked at many transfer combinations which involve selling him. But again, that's mainly due to the lack of options in the front line. So that is my starting 11. At the moment, I haven't considered selling any of those 11 players. I think they're absolutely fine. Some of them may end up coming onto the bench boost depending on the transfers I make, but all 11 of those are likely to stay in my team unless there are things that prop up in the press conferences. And then the 12th player that I haven't considered selling is Raya. I really don't like the double defensively for Brentford, but if Raya makes a few saves in each game, and maybe Brentford don't concede that many goals, Raya could still come away with 6-7 points. And if a clean sheet is in there, which is a big if, because Brighton and United I would expect to score, that's why I think that McAllister and Rashford are great captaincy options. If he keeps a clean sheet, it's going to be a monster score. It's going to be a 10, 11, 12 points, because you would expect him to make a lot of saves against those two teams. So I feel like Raya actually has quite a high ceiling, but I also feel like he's got quite a low floor. I wouldn't be surprised to see Raya come away with 3 or 4 points in this double. So I'm probably not going to sell Raya. So the 3 players that I could potentially sell are the 3 players that are currently on my bench, and that is Saka, Zinchenko, and Henry. We'll start with Henry. Henry's a tricky one because he's a double game week player, and I don't tend to advise selling a double game week player for another doubler, especially when they're nailed, for a defender. Henry actually has okay goal threat, assist threat, but decent expected goal involvement. I actually don't mind Henry as an option. It's just those 2 fixtures, both away against 2 teams that attack very well. It's more the fixtures than anything with Henry, because Brentford's defensive data is actually pretty decent too. So I've considered selling Henry. I would say I'm about 50-50 at the moment. It would be for a hit. So is it worth selling Henry for a double game week defender that isn't Luke Shaw, because I'm going to bring him anyway in for Zinchenko, which we'll discuss in a second? Is it worth selling Henry for the likes of a Chilwell or a West Ham defender for a -4? Or do I just back him, hope that he gets an assist or a goal, and maybe a clean sheet in one of the 2 games? It is tricky, because if I do take a -4, I need the defender that I bring in. Let's say Henry gets like 1 and a 2. Let's say he gets like 3 or 4 points. I need the defender that I bring in to get 7 or 8 points just to break even. So I really need a clean sheet and attacking return from the player I bring in, or 2 clean sheets. And there aren't any defenders that I look at that I would be confident in saying that they'll get that. So at the moment, I'm kind of 50-50 on selling Henry. I'm almost definitely going to be selling Saka and Zinchenko. I don't like it. I hate it as much as you probably do watching this, because Arsenal are fantastic. Leeds at home is a nice fixture. Saka has got really decent data. He's just come off the back of an 18-pointer. Zinchenko could quite easily keep a clean sheet here. But remember what I said about double game week 34. I want triple Man United for double game week 34. Man United also have a very decent double this week, and they've got good fixtures in and around that. Like next week, I would prefer to have Manchester United assets than I would Arsenal assets. So when I put all that together, I'd prefer Manchester United assets for next week. I would like to have them for double game week 34. And this week, whilst I do like Arsenal assets, I would probably prefer to have a double game week player such as a Bruno, such as a Luke Shaw. So I just might as well make the moves this week. It would be so much easier if Arsenal had a tricky fixture this week. I understand that. And if you tell me that you're keeping your Arsenal assets, I don't hate that at all. But Saka and Zinchenko to Bruno and Shaw is what a lot of people are doing because it feels a little bit sort of straightforward on paper at least. Bruno and Shaw are both putting up good, decent data. Actually, Bruno's is a lot better than I thought. Bruno is almost definitely still on penalties. He might share them with Rashford, but Bruno should still be on penalties. The only thing that would put me off slightly for Game Week 29 is we are in the absence of Casemiro, and Casemiro does make a big difference to our team. Mainly defensively, I don't think it will affect Bruno's positioning too much, but it will affect our chances of a clean sheet, and it will affect our build-up play slightly. So I understand that those are things that might put you off. But when I look at it on paper, I'm just thinking that Bruno and Shaw in for Saka and Zinchenko for a -4, that looks really good. That would then give me 14 double game week players. Then the only thing left over to think about is, do I want to do Henry to another double game week defender? That would change the bench boost, which we'll discuss in the next couple of sections. So that is the team. Let me know before I go into a little bit more detail about those transfers. What would you do if you had my team? Would you be taking a -4 or a -8? Would you be keeping your Arsenal assets? The only thing I really need to think about is really that Henry transfer and captaincy. But let's talk about my transfers in a little bit more detail now. So just so that you can visualize the transfers, this is the way that I'm currently thinking about it in my brain. If I were to only make one move this week, I think the free transfer would probably be Zinchenko to Shaw. So for me in my brain, that's the free transfer. Bringing in a double game week defender that I want long term. If I'm free hitting in 32, between now and game week 34, he's got 2 extra fixtures on top of Zinchenko, Luke Shaw. And I actually think just in general, the fixtures that he does have are better too. So in my mind, that's the free transfer. So anything above and beyond that, each transfer is worth a -4 hit. Now, as I always say to you guys, I prefer to view it as each transfer is a -4. Unless you're making like several transfers, which you need the funds to do X, Y, Z, and by downgrading one, you're upgrading another. I try to view each transfer in isolation. So the first transfer I need to think about is bringing in Bruno Fernandes for Saka worth a 4-point hit? For me, I do think the answer is yes. I hope that it pays me back in Game Week 29, but I'm not necessarily making it just with Game Week 29 in mind. Remember, it's for Game Week 34 too. It's for Game Week 32 when I think Manchester United have a better fixture. So for those reasons, I do think that's worth a 4-point hit. So Saka to Fernandes is the second one. And yes, this would then be a -8 overall, but I'm now considering those transfers. Let's say they're done. Then I need to think, for another 4-point hit, is it worth doing Henry to Chilwell or Zuma, or a double game week defender that is better than Henry, and in Zuma's case, has a double game week in 34, in Chilwell's case, has a double game week in 37. I'm less sure about this one because I don't necessarily think Chilwell and Zuma are that great for 29. It's just, I guess, that I think Henry is that bad. I really don't like those fixtures, especially when I've got double Brighton attack and double Manchester United attack. I really am backing Manchester United and Brighton to score goals in that home game against Brentford for each of them. So I feel like Henry is probably a 3 or 4 pointer, but all he needs is 1 assist. All he needs is a very lucky clean sheet. And all of a sudden, like I said, that player that I'm bringing in is almost definitely not going to pay back that hit. So I guess, like I said, let me know down below in the comments, what do you currently think around that? At the moment, I'm 50-50, but the Zinchenko to Shaw and the Saka to Bruno moves, I am very likely to make for a -4. So let's now switch over to FPL.team. Everyone always asks me what this site is. It's just FPL.team. It's a free site. I'm not affiliated, but I just feel like it's the best to use on YouTube because it looks fairly neat for you guys. So I've plugged in those 2 transfers, Bruno in for Saka and Zinchenko to Shaw. What that then leaves my bench boost looking like, as you can see, is Raya, Kane, Botman, and Henry. I'll be honest, it's not a great bench boost. I've seen much, much better bench boosts, and when I was planning this in my head, the bench boost was a lot better when I wildcarded in Game Week 26, so that's my bad. But it can be better with a -4. If I had Zuma in there, or if I had Chilwell in there instead of Henry, the bench all of a sudden looks a lot better. Newcastle are good defensively. I wouldn't put a clean sheet out of question there. Raya I would expect to make saves. Kane, I do hope will score against Everton. So this could still be like a 15, 20, maybe 25-point bench boost, but it's definitely not the best. The only issue with me saving it for 34, which I've seen a few people discuss, maybe similar situation where you've got injuries, maybe you've got Haaland and you don't want a bench boost anymore. My bench in 34 really doesn't look very good. So it's not like saving it just because game week 34 is a big double game week. It doesn't necessarily mean that your bench will look better, and mine definitely doesn't, especially if you've got like double Chelsea. So they're things to consider, but for me, I'm just going to play it this week. So the bench boost is all but confirmed. Moving on to game week 30, if I make those two moves, like I said, I would have 6.2 million in the bank. And then the planned move is going to be Tony to Haaland. So I've plugged that in. If Haaland isn't fit, at the time of you watching this, hopefully you will know, and sorry if it's a bit obvious for you. But for me, I'm not sure at this stage. So it'll either be Haaland in for Tony, and if that's not the case, I will probably roll the transfer and then do Maddison to Salah in game week 31 for free, and then I'll have another free transfer. So it really does come down to the Haaland situation. It might also come down to Tony's suspension too, because if he is suspended, even if Haaland's not available, I'll have to sell Tony anyway. So there's a lot of sort of if, buts, and maybes. There's lots of things up in the air, but that's the current plan. Going into game week 31, I have taken a -4 to get Salah. The reason for that is I'm currently planning on free hitting in 32, so I would have a free transfer to use. It's not ideal taking a hit, especially when the rest of the team isn't that great, but this would give me Salah in place for double game week 34. And as you can actually see here, I've got Kane, Haaland, Salah, and Bruno. So I've actually got 4 premiums, you could say, with this team. I don't think you need to do that. I think you're absolutely fine selling Kane to get Salah, or potentially selling Bruno to get Salah if you want to. Probably Kane's the one because he doesn't double in 34. But I don't want to do that in 31 because Kane's got Bournemouth at home. So I'm potentially looking at getting Salah in 31 and then selling Kane in 33 or potentially 34. So this is roughly what the team could look like. I then would obviously move Watkins to Greenwood to fund that. So Watkins to Greenwood to fund Maddison to Kane. Bring Maddison to Salah. Bring Salah in for 31. I'm free hitting in this week because my team's an absolute mess and I wouldn't particularly want to try and get through this week. I pretty much committed here to a free hit in 32. Moving forward to game week 33, this is a bad week for my team. I've got double Manchester United attack against Spurs. I've got Kane against United. I've got Haaland against Arsenal. It's not a great week, but your team's not going to be perfect every week. There are no major issues here. I would probably still try and roll a transfer, which means going into game week 34, the team would be looking like this with 2 free transfers to use. And the idea here would be maybe taking a punt on a Man City attacker. The only issue I've got with that is that the only one that I would really be happy selling here is probably Harry Kane, because the rest of them, or Greenwood. But to do that, I would then have to probably bring in Alvarez because he's the only Man City attacker. The rest of the Man City attackers you would want are all midfielders in FPL, and I don't want to sell or bench any of my other midfielders. So, like, if I wanted to bring in Grealish, Mahrez, Foden, who would I take out here? So I'm probably limiting myself a bit. I guess I would have the option here to do Ederson in for Kepa or Raya, but we've spoken about Ederson in the past. He's really got quite a low ceiling, so maybe a defender of some kind, like an Ake in for Henry or Trippier. But realistically, the team's in a really strong position here for game week 34. I'm looking at having at least 8 double game week players. Really strong team. I won't go any further than that because this is already so far in the distance. But as you can see, I think the team's shaping up well. I'm well set up for game week 29, free hit 32. I'm well set up for 34 as well. Hopefully, it should be a good 5 or 6 game weeks for me. So that's the current plan. That's the current team. As I said, let me know what you would do with my team. Let me know what you think of that extra -4 to do Henry to one of Chilwell or a West Ham defender such as Zuma or a guard. And yeah, let me know what you're doing with your team as well. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 29 team selection. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Make sure to check out Surfshark. There will be a link in the description. And also make sure to follow me over on Instagram. I'm posting so much more on Instagram. It's actually one of my favorite platforms to use at the moment. Posting on the stories, posting just pictures of my everyday life. Also some FPL rants over there too. So if you are interested in just seeing a little bit more of me and you also want to support me as well, I would massively appreciate it if you go follow the Instagram. There will be a link in the description, or it's just FPL__Raptor. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.